Ukraine's battle against Russia extends far beyond the front lines, where its courageous soldiers repel assaults and launch counterattacks to reclaim lost territory and protect key strategic positions. Equally vital is the fierce resistance emerging from within the regions that Russia claims to fully control, where ordinary Ukrainians defy occupation despite constant threats of imprisonment, torture, or execution. These brave individuals risk everything, sending an unmistakable message to the Kremlin that submission is not an option, and that the spirit of Ukrainian independence remains unbroken. One of the key figures in this extraordinary resistance movement, a Special Operations Forces commander who remains anonymous for security reasons, recently granted an in-depth interview to the Kyiv Independent. He shed light on the resistance's exceptional operations and the remarkable resilience shown by all participants, emphasizing the critical role civilians play in this ongoing struggle. When asked about the origins of the resistance, the commander revealed that it actually began well before Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, tracing back to 2016, shortly after Russia's annexation of Crimea. The concept was straightforward: involve civilians deeply in the defense of their country, empowering everyday men and women who were not enlisted in the military to actively fight back against the occupiers using any means available. Although their tactics may differ from conventional warfare, the commander emphasized that the resistance movement shares the same ultimate goal as Ukraine's regular armed forces: to expel the Russian military and occupation authorities, restore Ukraine's territorial integrity, and defend its sovereignty at all costs. This shared objective unites all Ukrainians, even if the paths to achieving it vary significantly. History offers countless precedents of such resistance movements, some dating back centuries or even millennia. Notably, the World War II French resistance stands out as a powerful example, comprising diverse groups of courageous citizens who refused to submit to Nazi occupation. They conducted a wide range of activities, from publishing underground newspapers to engaging in guerrilla warfare and aiding the Allied advance after the Normandy landings, demonstrating the profound impact of organized civilian resistance on the outcome of conflicts. Drawing inspiration from such historical models, the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces resistance employs a variety of techniques, both violent and non-violent, to undermine Russian control in subtle yet effective ways. The commander detailed how their forces trained civilians in the use of small arms and the construction of improvised explosive devices, IEDs, which are then deployed to eliminate enemy forces within occupied territories while minimizing collateral damage. Some resistance fighters scavenge functional weapons abandoned on battlefields, using guerrilla tactics and silent arms to ambush unsuspecting Russian patrols when opportunities arise. Others focus on manufacturing IEDs from whatever materials they can procure locally or receive smuggled in from other parts of Ukraine. These devices are strategically planted in critical locations such as radio towers, communication centers, and near parked tanks or armored infantry vehicles to maximize damage and disrupt enemy operations. To enhance operational security and reduce the risk of detection, the commander explained that these deadly IEDs are meticulously disguised, enabling resistance members to carry out sabotage missions with greater stealth and effectiveness. This intricate combination of grassroots courage, tactical training, and strategic ingenuity underscores the formidable challenge the resistance poses to Russians, embodying the unwavering spirit of a people determined to reclaim their home. We take every possible measure to effectively camouflage our personnel, meticulously protecting them from enemy detection and significantly delaying the critical moment when an individual might activate a device, thereby ensuring they are positioned far from the intended target to minimize risk and maximize operational success. This comprehensive approach to concealment encompasses a variety of sophisticated techniques, including physical camouflage, using state-of-the-art materials that blend seamlessly with the surrounding environment, The use of advanced night vision and thermal imaging gear around in darkness, and leveraging natural terrain features such as dense forests, rugged hills. In addition to physical concealment, we maintain stringent operational security protocols that involve encrypted communications channels to prevent interception by enemy forces, strict movement protocols that limit exposure and reduce patterns that could be exploited, and continuous surveillance and counter-surveillance measures to detect any attempts at tracking or ambush. Ukraine employs these integrated tactics with precision, enabling combatants to hold the front lines with resilience while simultaneously positioning highly trained operatives deep behind enemy lines for covert sabotage missions and intelligence gathering. These small, agile units are expertly trained to navigate complex and hostile environments, conduct reconnaissance that provides critical battlefield intelligence, and execute targeted sabotage operations aimed at disrupting enemy supply chains, communication networks, and morale, thereby weakening the adversary's operational capabilities from within. Despite Vladimir Putin's public assertions of total control and stability in occupied areas, the persistent and adaptive resistance unequivocally proves that occupiers are neither safe nor welcome, as resistance fighters are prepared to strike suddenly and unpredictably, maintaining a constant threat that undermines enemy confidence and control. Beyond armed conflict, the resistance also employs a broad spectrum of non-violent methods designed to influence the Russian military's effectiveness, disrupt logistics and command structures, and galvanize occupied citizens to actively resist or intimidate collaborators, creating a hostile environment for enemy sympathizers. For instance, dedicated teachers in occupied territories play a crucial role in fostering resilience among children by educating them with truthful information, despite significant risks, thereby preserving the spirit of defiance and countering pervasive Russian propaganda efforts aimed at erasing Ukrainian identity. Highlighting this vital aspect of cultural resistance, the Special Operations Forces produced a poignant film honoring these educators, focusing on a history teacher in occupied Luhansk who courageously leads a secret study group committed to preserving Ukrainian culture and heritage under the harsh conditions of occupation. The resistance movement effectively unites individuals of all ages and diverse backgrounds, many of whom require specialized training to resist safely and effectively without exposing themselves to unnecessary danger. While some members had the foresight to undergo training before the invasion, enabling them to act decisively when the conflict escalated, the Special Operations Forces proactively trained numerous volunteers early on, systematically building a resilient and adaptive defense network that remains ready to face the evolving challenges of ongoing conflict and occupation. This multifaceted resistance effort not only preserves Ukrainian sovereignty and identity, but also serves as a powerful symbol of national unity and determination in the face of aggression. The people living under occupation by Russian forces constantly face the threat of being stopped, searched, and interrogated by soldiers, so they need credible cover stories explaining why they must travel and where they are headed. Movement is heavily monitored, with checkpoints and patrols frequently set up to enforce control, making everyday activities fraught with danger and suspicion. As the war has continued, it has become much harder to conduct in-person resistance training, especially given the pervasive surveillance and harsh reprisals for any signs of dissent. Yet the Special Operations Forces, SOF, have adapted by training new recruits remotely, utilizing secure communication methods and clandestine networks to maintain operational secrecy. According to the commander, those who seek them out or whom they find and who are willing to cooperate receive training from a distance, which includes instruction in guerrilla tactics, sabotage, intelligence gathering, and secure signaling, all tailored to the constraints imposed by the occupation. Ukrainians in these regions, like many throughout history whose lands have been seized by invaders, could choose the safer and easier path of complying with their occupiers, living quiet, simple lives, and hoping for improvement. But this option is fraught with moral compromise and the risk of becoming complicit in the occupier's abuses. This would be the less risky option, especially in a conflict marked by numerous documented war crimes and brutal punishments for anyone showing even the slightest support for Ukraine or opposition to the Russian regime, including arbitrary arrests, disappearances, and public executions designed to instill fear among the population. Men suspected of resistance risk imprisonment, torture, forced conscription to fight against their own people, or execution if they refuse. While women frequently endure horrific sexual violence, with rape being used systematically as a weapon of war to terrorize civilians, degrade communities, and disrupt social cohesion, all while perpetrating. Even children are not spared. Over 19,500 Ukrainian children have reportedly been forcibly deported to Russia, separated from their families, subjected to pro-Russian propaganda aimed at erasing their Ukrainian identity, and placed for adoption with Russian families in an attempt to assimilate them and sever their cultural ties. Parents face threats of having their children taken to orphanages unless they agree to participate in Russian military training camps, which employ psychological pressure and indoctrination to convert youth into loyalists. These grim realities illustrate the brutal conditions faced by countless Ukrainians in occupied territories, where punishments are especially severe for those showing any resistance, creating an atmosphere of pervasive fear and oppression. Despite this, many continue to defy their oppressors, risking everything out of a shared resolve rooted in national pride and the desire for freedom. When asked about their motivations, the commander explained that regardless of age, background, or profession, these individuals share a common sentiment, a firm rejection of the Russian presence on Ukrainian soil. Older members, who remember the Soviet era and its repressive policies, are determined to avoid a repeat of that oppressive regime, while younger people, who have experienced freedom and autonomy since Ukraine's independence, understand the critical need to defend these hard-won liberties against authoritarian encroachment. Though their personal reasons vary, they are united in their common goal, driven by a profound resentment of the Russian occupiers and a strong desire to see them leave their homeland, fueling a resilient resistance that continues to sustain hope amid the harshest of circumstances. The commander emphasizes that many resistance members are motivated by deeply personal and often harrowing reasons, having witnessed firsthand the immense suffering inflicted upon their loved ones and communities through relentless Russian attacks that have indiscriminately destroyed homes, schools, hospitals, and entire neighborhoods without any justifiable cause. For these individuals, the fight transcends mere territorial defense or political objectives. It is fundamentally about seeking justice for the atrocities committed and exacting a form of revenge for the irreparable damage and loss endured by their families and friends. Despite the wide range of personal motivations that bring people into the fold, from patriotic duty and a desire to protect their homeland to deeply emotional drives rooted in grief and outrage, each member plays a crucial and irreplaceable role in an ever-expanding, inclusive movement that actively welcomes. There are some specific exceptions. For instance, minors are excluded from recruitment due to the critical nature of their occupation and the potential disruption their absence could cause to vital infrastructure, and individuals deemed physically or mentally unfit for combat roles are not enlisted to ensure both their safety and the effectiveness of the operation. The Special Operations Forces, SOF, maintain a stringent vetting process for all recruits, meticulously assessing each candidate's commitment, loyalty, and reliability, sometimes rejecting those whose backgrounds or behaviors raise suspicions of infiltration or divided allegiances. This rigorous screening helps maintain the integrity and security of the resistance network. The movement is remarkably diverse, comprising people from a broad spectrum of backgrounds, professions, and skill sets, all united by a shared determination to resist oppression and reclaim their country's sovereignty. Most members are lifelong Ukrainians, many hailing from conflict-affected regions such as Donetsk and Luhansk, who have chosen to remain in these perilous zones for deeply personal reasons, whether it be to protect family members, safeguard their property from looting or destruction, care for elderly relatives who cannot be relocated. Importantly, the resistance is not exclusively Ukrainian. The SOF has developed extensive networks that span both Ukrainian-controlled and occupied territories and actively recruits foreign volunteers drawn by the cause moral imperative. Among these volunteers are individuals who initially fought on the Russian side, but, upon witnessing the realities of the conflict and the consequences of aggression, chose to switch allegiances to support Ukraine's fight for freedom and justice. The movement's international dimension is further underscored by offers of support and solidarity coming from all corners of the globe, including distant and diverse regions such as New Zealand and South America, reflecting a broad and heartfelt global consensus in favor of Ukraine's resistance against invasion and occupation. This worldwide backing not only boosts morale, but also provides critical resources and legitimacy to the cause, underscoring the universal values of sovereignty, human rights, and self-determination that the resistance embodies. "I want to be on the right side of history during this time," the commander stated emphatically, highlighting the profound moral drive and unwavering conviction behind their relentless efforts to resist oppression and defend their homeland. Though not everyone eager to help can contribute directly due to complex logistical challenges, stringent security constraints, and the necessity to operate covertly to protect lives, the Special Operations Forces, SOF, deeply value all offers of assistance, regardless of scale, and strive diligently to maintain open and secure lines of communication with willing supporters across the globe. Militaries and defense agencies from various countries have proactively reached out to learn how the resistance operates, prepares, and sustains itself under extreme conditions, aiming to absorb these vital lessons and methodologies. Should they ever face similar existential threats or asymmetric warfare scenarios. These international partners include not just Western nations with advanced military capabilities, but also Eastern countries confronting large, resource-rich aggressors that pose significant threats to regional stability and peace. The commander noted that the resistance has shared key intelligence, tactical insights, and strategic frameworks with responsible nations, including many of Russia's neighbors, to foster collective security and preparedness, and remains open and willing to assist other potential resistance movements globally. Specifically, the commander cited Lithuania, Estonia, and Finland as examples of countries where resistance movements could potentially grow in response to external threats, underscoring the importance of solidarity and shared knowledge among nations facing similar challenges. Surprisingly, a substantial number of Russians oppose Putin's regime and actively support the Ukrainian resistance, driven by fears that their country's increasing isolation, internal repression, and economic decline could worsen significantly if the current regime remains unchecked. The resistance actively collaborates with Russians both abroad and within occupied territories, providing crucial support to those courageous individuals founding resistance cells under the harsh conditions of Russian control, demonstrating that opposition to Putin is not only external, but also growing stronger within Russia itself. Many disillusioned Russians who were once either supportive of the regime or chose to remain silent out of fear are now seeking peace and showing a willingness to act courageously against authoritarian rule. Despite numerous challenges such as a dwindling number of active participants, intensified crackdowns by security forces, and the constant threat of infiltration, the movement remains resolute and determined, vowing to continue fighting until their land is fully liberated. The commander affirmed with steadfast resolve, "We will fight until our territories are liberated," emphasizing that their struggle transcends official recognition or the presence of formal ally support, relying primarily on the spirit, resilience, and courage of Ukrainians residing in both government-controlled and occupied zones. When asked what he would say to Putin if given the chance, the commander's response was simple, yet powerful. "I'd tell him to leave us alone. If the resistance keeps its momentum and Ukraine's armed forces continue securing victories on the battlefield, there is hope that Putin will eventually hear and heed that message, recognizing that the will of the Ukrainian people cannot be broken, and that continued aggression will only lead to further isolation and defeat." Watch a video on Ukraine's recent Donbass victory and another on Russia's frontline collapse. Subscribe for the latest military news, reports, and analysis on the Russia-Ukraine war and global conflicts.